Would you believe me if I told you that right now in the United States, current family law reform is being controlled and passed by none other than a social media influencer? You don't have to rewind the video. You heard me right. Current legislation related to child psychological abuse, otherwise known as parental alienation, is being passed, in my opinion, by the efforts of a single social media influencer, none other than Tina Swithin, who owns the organization known as One Mom's Battle. This isn't my first video about Tina Swithin. I've made various other videos about her because she says that parental alienation is pseudoscience. She exploits alienated kids, in my opinion.
I'm going to share multiple videos of children being taken to reunification camps.
Tina publicly smears the reputations of other professionals in the parental alienation sphere. And now I'm going to make this video about something that's even more frightening. Tina Swithin's involvement with passing Kayden's Law, SB 78. Under Title 15 of the Violence Against Women's Act. Now, if you've watched all of my videos, or if you were around last year, you might remember that I interviewed a woman named Kathy Sherlock. Kathy is the mother of Kayden Mancuso. Yes, the same Kayden for which Kayden's Law has been named after. Kayden Mancuso was a young girl who was murdered by the hands of her own father, who also took his own life, during a really high conflict custody battle. And back then I had no idea that Kathy Sherlock was close friends with Tina Swithin. During the interview, I was trying to understand how her case and her daughter's death related to parental alienation. I failed to understand why a bill that weaponizes false allegations and does not protect all children would be important to name after her daughter. Well, since then, I've learned a lot, for better or worse, about Kayden's Law. I've also come to believe recently that Tina Swithin is actually the driving force behind these current legislative efforts, which to me is downright terrifying. Last month, a targeted mom reached out to me. Her name is Aubrey. She expressed that she was really thrown off balance. She felt anxious, upset, and she expressed to me that she had information she believed she needed to share. Needless to say, I sat down with Aubrey and recorded our conversation with her permission. I think you'll find the following conversation that we had to be both informative and heartfelt. Aubrey explains the parts of the bill that she believes, and many other people believe, myself included, are dangerous for alienated children specifically and their parents. She not only explains these parts of the bill that were cleverly written to undermine the validity of parental alienation or any testimony or evidence of parental alienation, but she also sheds light on her own personal journey and her interactions with Tina Swithin and Tina Swithin's divorce coaches. As I always like to say, anyone with a pulse can alienate, which is why it's so baffling to me that women like One Mom's Battle and Joan Meyer, Jean Mercer, all these other women, how they can claim to protect women but deny the existence and the cold, ugly reality of the psychological child abuse that millions of little girls and targeted moms experience every day. Shouldn't targeted moms matter too? Shouldn't moms facing false allegations matter too? Hence the title of this video. I'm very honored to bring to you today Aubrey's story, otherwise known as Another Mom's Battle. Welcome, Aubrey, to the Anti-Alienation Project, first of all.
Thank you so much for having me, Maddie.
Thank you for being here. I know it's not easy to talk about these things.
Thank you.
So Aubrey reached out to me because she's been working on reform. She had some worries and some information that she felt was really important to share. So today we're going to get into those emails. Okay, so where did the emails begin? When was this? And why did you reach out to, was it Tina Swithin, One Mom's Battle?
Yes. In a nutshell, what had happened is that, so Kayden's Law came to Utah. And although I had heard about Kayden's Law, I wasn't very familiar with Kayden's Law or the depth of Kayden's Law. And essentially when Kayden's Law came to Utah, I started working with anyone and everybody on just adding in psychological abuse and adding that language into the bill by law so that psychological abuse could be recognized in Utah. I was unclear of the history of the bill or the origins of the bill, the creation, the writers. There have been mothers here in Utah that I believed, that I supported, that come to find out were trying to push forward Kayden's law excluding psychological abuse. One of the last attempts that I had reached out to everyone in my state. I had done everything I could possibly think of, and I wasn't really feeling like I was getting anyone to listen to me. And so I thought, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and send a message to One Mom's Battle, Tina Swithin, and maybe she can help me or tell me what's going on with this bill. So I've been in family court. My son was removed from me January of 2021. And during my time in family court, all these years, I've become very familiar with law language, which is a really kind of difficult thing to understand sometimes. And so I became very interested in the law language all of these years. When I printed out Ohm's Law, which is a version of Kayden's law, renamed in Utah, Ohm's Law, when I read through that bill and the specifics of the law language, I was beyond concerned. And so what I did from there is, with my concerns from Ohm's Law, I took that law language and I wrote out my concerns. I believe it was like 9 or 10 different concerns. And I had wrote out the concerns. I had listed the law language, I listed the problem, and then I listed my question, thinking I was going to get back some support or some validation or another mother being concerned about the language of this bill. And I received the opposite. Tina Swithin responded to me and let me know that she had not had a chance to read the bill, that she had been dealing with some health problems, but that she supports the bill and the writer, Danielle Pollock, without even reading the bill.
Okay. That's a lot. This is a lot of information. Thank you. We're going to get into the email where she says that she supports the bill without reading the bill, which I don't know how you can support the bill without reading the bill. But let's talk a little bit about the concerns, if you don't mind. So you said you had 8 or 9 concerns. What were your other concerns that you had about the bill?
Number one was that any credible allegation of abuse is considered domestic violence within this bill. You're not required to show clear and convincing evidence of abuse. Just saying something that sounds credible would have been enough to remove a child from this bill.
Basically enabling false allegations and you can take a child away just making an accusation. It doesn't have to have any evidence behind it. So this is pretty much putting it into law. Okay.
Yes.
I just want to point out for anyone watching that the way that the alienation was sealed for me was with a false allegation that my mom made against my dad. And in that way, she was able to get full custody, restraining order, and I wasn't able to see him for a period of time, which really solidified the alienation. So this has long-lasting impacts for not just the other parent, but also the child. So that's part of the reason why we're talking about this today. False allegations, of course, are a huge problem in family court that enables alienation to continue. So I think that's really problematic.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and go through. It looks like I have a total of 9. Do you want me to just read through them or stop into? Okay. So number 2 is credible allegations and many other terms are vague and loose within this bill. With loose language, all parties could be in danger, left up to lawyers to argue in court versus finding the truth. It becomes a lawyer's playground, essentially. Number 3, this bill does not propose any vetting or investigation of allegations done by the courts before removing a child to get to the bottom of what the family is going through. Number 4, this bill completely ignores the possibility of false allegations and or parental alienation as a legal/abuse strategy and the frequency of these upside down cases involving post-separation abuse. Number 5, line 313 and 331 and 565 imply family or friends can be selected as a parent-time supervisor in cases where domestic violence is already present in families.
What does that mean exactly?
It means that instead of hiring a third-party supervisor, they allow a friend or a family member to supervise the visit where there's already domestic violence involved in a family. You would think that a professional is needed to be brought in at that point.
Okay, I understand.
Number 6. Line 341, if a parent is found abusive, including unsubstantiated abuse claims, or past convictions, the parent will be ordered supervised parent time indefinitely.
Okay, so that seems crazy to me that you can have an unsubstantiated claim and have your children taken away from you, not to mention past convictions. So it's
anything. That's basically saying that any false allegation that has ever been thrown against you your whole life could end up being used against you in custody matters as well. Because there are people who get convictions based on false allegations. And even if it is statistically, most people will not lie. You still have to take it case by case and not work these things statistically.
And like we were talking about before the interview, a lot of divorces are not high conflict. So we're dealing with high conflict cases as it stands. So it makes sense to me that family court would be rife with false allegations. Are there any more that you'd like to mention?
Yeah, a couple more, but I also just want to add on that past convictions. Like, now you could get with a partner knowing their past and knowing that they've become a better person, that they've changed, but then you can still use that against them. If you ever end up breaking up, you can still use that against them. So you might still choose to understand that this person had their past and forgive them and know that they've changed, but then that could still be used against them later down the road. The next one, number 8, line 380 and 3, past convictions can play a part in custody proceedings years later, even before having children. Any parent with a current or past protective order, stalking injunction, charge, arrest, or conviction will be put on indefinite supervision, which is unconstitutional. Number 9, and this was my last one, the bill is supposed to take effect May 1st, 2024. This is something to take into account if Kayden's Law or a version of Kayden's Law comes to your state. But the training programs for the court professionals, judges, and commissioners will not be proposed until after the bill goes into effect. You know, this bill would basically be passing concerning domestic violence before we even know what the training would be. The only training that I have seen proposed is One Mom's Battle, Tina Swithin's training programs. That's the only thing I've seen proposed. So I don't know if Kayden's Law is trying to put training parameters in there so that then they have the control of the training and the narrative, making the narrative what they feel it to be.
Okay, thank you. That is a really helpful overview of the issues. And a lot of people are going to learn a lot today about Kayden's Law and the specific issues in that bill. So what made you reach out to Tina Swithin? How did you know that she was connected to the bill? And what did you expect her to say, or what did you want her to say before we get into the actual wording?
Yeah, so I didn't know that Tina Swithin was behind Kayden's Law. I had no clue who was behind Kayden's Law. I reached out to One Mom's Battle, Tina Swithin, because she does have a large platform on social media concerning these issues. And so I thought that she would be extremely interested in these issues and what I had to say. And unfortunately was not, and basically ended up telling me that she is the person behind the bill, the media, and that she supports Kayden's Law and that she supports those issues that I explained. This bill is being brought state by state without the court professionals sometimes even knowing that this bill is coming. And so as far as I know, Tina Swithin does not have any therapy background, psychological background.
Are there exploiters in court who have probably exploited the term parental alienation or the psychological phenomenon of alienation to get their kids back? Probably yes. And we're not saying that's not true. I think it should be much more difficult for people to make false allegations of parental alienation, for example. But Tina Swithin, her stance is that parental alienation is pseudoscience and that it doesn't exist, that it is merely a tactic that abusive fathers use in court to get their children back. She has a very black and white stance in this issue. In my opinion, she fails to understand that this is severe psychological abuse. I, of course, am against domestic violence for women. I think that most people are. This issue is more nuanced than this narrative that Tina Swithin has put forward. I just wanted to add that disclaimer.
I think what's so important for me to add to that is my main goal of being here and meeting with you today is to let parents know that the court is not bad, that the court does have problems, but they do believe in reunification. And that if someone would have told me that the courts are bad and corrupt and not to work with them and to turn against them, I would have never got my child home. I am one of the lucky that got my child home. And I believe I did that by listening to the courts and the court professionals. The court professionals are not the reunification industry. They are trained professionals that charge a normal hourly rate. They are not the reunification industry. And I just want to add to what you said, Maddie, is that I think where Tina and One Mom's Battle and their supporters are missing the mark is that two things can be true. I believe that there is such thing as parental alienation and psychological abuse, but I also understand there may be mothers out there that have to keep their child with them to keep them safe. I think two things can happen at once. And to add to this, I don't mean to be disrespectful or to trigger anyone or to be crass, but we are talking about abuse.
Thank you so much for adding that. So we went over the main problems with Kayden's law. Let's get into those emails.
So after I had broken down the issues to Tina Swithin, I ended the email saying, what is the agenda if it's not all children in all circumstances, ? This could be Utah's chance at change and reform that the rest of the country could model. We must get this right for all children and circumstances. Signed, a concerned parent. Again, I had no inkling that Tina was involved in Kayden's law. And so the response that I got back from her, I sent my email February 26th at 12:44 a.m. She went ahead and responded to me February 26th, 7:34 a.m. And she said, I am not a policy expert. You will definitely want to reach out to Danielle Pollock from the National Family Violence Law Center, who has been instrumental in the writing and revisions to this bill modeled after the federal bill law. Now I'm starting to understand her efforts behind Kayden's law. She said, what I can tell you is our efforts in California. A perfect bill will not pass. These bills start out incredibly strong and are met with big opposition. Why? It will never pass if they don't make compromises. It is about chipping away at it, one piece at a time. Those in my Utah group agree that it is not perfect, but it is what they will likely be able to pass, and it's a huge step in the right direction. I do not see this as a step in the right direction. This is breeding more abuse.
How can she even say it's a step in the right direction if she hasn't read the bill?
Goes on to say, whenever I get emails like this, I encourage people to get involved. If there is specific areas that you think need to be tackled, by all means, take the reins and get it started. The most difficult part of doing this work is that there are more people complaining than there are helping. That is not meant to be an attack. It is really what happens, and it often feels really frustrating. There are so many laws that need passed and so many angles that we need to hit, but there aren't enough people willing to do it. I responded at 10:40 a.m. that same day. I said, how very alarming. My concern 1 through 9 involving domestic violence could be more lost lives if this bill is not written safely. I am very involved. Thank you for your response. Tina responds 10 minutes later. I would definitely reach out to Danielle Pollock. She would be better equipped to respond to your concerns, which sound very valid. Now, when she said that to me, I reached out to one of her divorce coaches who had been telling me that the way that I had been seeing it was wrong, and I was not receiving any validation from her. And so I sent one of her divorce coaches a text message and said, it looks like Tina says that my concerns are valid. I said back to her, have you read this bill? Do you have concerns about the language in this? This divorce coach was like, here as Tina, like in my face, and saying horrible, nasty things about falsely accused parents, and was saying the most disturbing things.
Out of nowhere?
So what happened is at the Capitol that day, when I was working on Ohm's Law, and it was the day that it was supposed to be entered in, I went to the Capitol. And I stood outside of the Capitol, the room where they were going to go in and vote on Ohm's Law, and I waited for Paul Cutler. Paul Cutler was the host of the bill here in Utah for Ohm's Law. So I waited for him, and I told my team, if anybody sees Paul Cutler, I need him to see my face. And so as soon as my team saw Paul Cutler, they told me. I rushed over to talk to Paul Cutler. When I rushed over to talk to Paul Cutler, there was a woman who was trying to get her picture taken and some media and some things. And she had an assistant there with her who was her minor niece. So bringing a minor with her to this event. And her niece assistant was not there at the moment. And I wanted to make sure I got a chance to talk to Paul Cutler. I didn't know who this woman was. So I basically inserted myself to be the person taking the picture so that Paul Cutler couldn't get away from me. When I took their picture, and then after taking their picture, now we were already inside the room, the floor where they were going to vote. And I just said, Paul Cutler, I want you to understand this bill will not protect me and my son. I'm in tears. I'm trying to tell him. To this day, still don't know what I said, if it was helpful, if he understood. I don't know. But he looked at me in my eyes and he said, what's your name? I said, my name is Aubrey Fager. And okay. 10 minutes later, I got an email from Paul Cutler with a generic response that this bill is safe. He did not understand. So after that scenario happened, the lady who was taking pictures with Paul Cutler is a One Mom's Battle divorce coach. She was there in place of Tina Swithin and Danielle Pollock to get media of this bill passing in Utah.
Wow.
So when I was emailing with Tina and I got an email back that said, your concerns, which sound very valid, I text the divorce coach and I said, One Mom's Battle thinks that my concerns are valid.
Okay. Sorry to interrupt.
Okay.
I just need to know. So at that point, what were you thinking that her stance was? Were you hopeful that because she said your concerns are valid, or did you feel a little defeated because of what she had said beforehand? What were you feeling and thinking at that moment?
So in that moment, I felt, aha, she cares. She's saying my concerns are valid. So then I emailed her divorce coach and said, Tina thinks my concerns are valid. Now the divorce coach is contacting Tina and I will get a response about that. So then she said, which your concerns are valid. So then I send 2 emails in a row. I say, because she's talking with her divorce coach now, she's not responding to me. So I said, have you read the bill? ? Do you have concerns about the language in the bill ? Then I send another email without getting a response. And I say, Tina, how can I get in contact with Danielle Pollock? Do you have language concerns in this bill? Do you support this bill passing as it is currently written? So now I'm putting together that these people are not on my side and I need to ask a lot of questions and I need to know where they stand. Well, after I had sent 2 emails and she's talking with her divorce coach, she says, I have not seen the recent reversions or updates, and I trust Danielle as a policy expert. I have not been in the loop in recent weeks. I'm navigating some health challenges. You can contact her at Danielle Pollock and gives me her email. And then she sends a second email. She does 2 emails and she says, Aubrey, I do want to clarify my earlier email. I was not in capital letters, implying that your concerns with the bill are valid, but that you have concerns which I believe should be heard. As I've said, this is not my area of expertise, and Danielle would be more equipped to respond to you. In that last email, she added Danielle to it. So now she's triangulating me, and she adds Danielle to the email thread. And now we're all on one email, right? I say, thank you for clarifying that you personally do not see my language concerns as valid. Thank you for that clarification, my mistake. Thank you for letting me know that you support Danielle Pollock's work before ever reading the bill or consulting legal teams on the language. I messaged you because the parents look to you. I thought you would at least read my concerns and compare them with the bill. You support and endorse this bill publicly with the platform you have without review/study of the bill and the bill language. How disheartening. As a Utah mother who has spent over $150K to bring light to dismiss false allegations, this bill is important to me. I have been in the system since 2018 and my case is still ongoing. Many professionals witnessed the coaching in my case and the system failed to do anything about the proven false allegations. Post-separation abuse is real. This bill blesses post-separation abuse to continue. This is one more mother's battle. This is my battle. Looking forward to Danielle's response to my concern. Tina says, our conversation has run its course and is complete. You are twisting my words and my intentions to fit an agenda. Whether it is yours or someone else's, I am not sure. Regardless, I am sorry for what you have been through and I wish you well. I said, that's not true. I simply accepted your response. I have no agenda other than finding answers and unity. I emailed you about my concerns. I thought you would review my concerns, the language in the bill, and maybe someone would be able to offer answers or explanation. All I can now conclude is there's no answers for me here. I had no questions in my last email. I did not request a response and hope to hear back from Danielle. I hope you choose to review my concerns and the language in the bill. No response necessary. Thank you. Love and light. Then I get an email from Danielle Pollock. Danielle Pollock says, Aubrey, thank you for contacting me, which I didn't. I then sent her another email that she ignored, but then of course she doesn't respond to that email. She responds to the triangulating email thread and says, thank you for contacting me. It appears whoever wrote these 9 points forwarded to me is misinformed about what HB 272 actually does. Apparently, me reading the bill, apparently I don't understand. You may find the attached Utah stakeholders fact sheet, particularly the second page fact, helpful for clarification. All the best, Danielle. That's the end of it.
Well, let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Aubrey, what were you feeling directly after that email exchange? What were you thinking? Do you remember what your reaction was like?
It was hard for me to process. I couldn't understand. I sent the email to all of the professionals that I knew that were working on Ohm's Law.
Okay.
These emails were brought to the politicians in my state. And I think that it just probably took me like a good month to understand what I had just received.
Can you explain for people who might not be putting the pieces together yet what that is? Why did you need to come on? And why are these emails so important to share?
Once I got those emails, it showed me that Tina Swithin was Kayden's law. And the reason being is because if she's saying, I support the writer Danielle Pollock, and Danielle Pollock is the writer, but Tina Swithin is the media.
The face of it?
The face, the media, the letters to the politicians, the fact sheets, and everything like that. Base email solidified those alliances to solidify who's behind it. She's not just supporting this bill. She is the media behind this bill. She is the organizer behind this bill. Kayden's law has been put through under VAWA, been approved very sneaky. Okay, like people don't even know that it's happening and then bam, it's entered in. But what I found very interesting about this and processing this, because I'm working with people, I'm going to the Capitol, I'm giving my testimony. All the other moms hated me.
Were you the only targeted mom there?
I believe so. And they hated me.
I'm so sorry, first of all. I'm so sorry. That's the thing.
Sorry, this is so silly to cry about. Like,
it's not. It's not. I can edit it out if you want me to, but it's not.
No, whatever you want.
Aubrey, this is the thing is you've been through a massive trauma. We both did in different ways, but you've been through a massive trauma. And what these women are saying is that you don't matter, or that your story doesn't matter. And that's what they're saying to me too. So I understand. And I'm so sorry that you didn't have more support there that day. Next time I'll go with you.
The other mothers hating me caused so much confusion in me. And the reason I was so hurt is because I believed those mothers. There was one mother I protested for, her and her children. And to have that like person and their whole camp and everybody like turn against me was so confusing. And obviously one of the biggest signs of abuse is confusion. And so I was just like beside myself, but I knew like I had to go forward in speaking for the falsely accused because I didn't think that there was anybody else who was going to do it.
Can I ask a question moving forward? What made you believe or come to the conclusion that they hated you?
They just wouldn't have anything to do with me.
Because you weren't supporting Kay's law?
Yeah, I showed up with one of the most well-known reunification therapists in the state. And the mother of the children and the mother that I protested for hates that reunification therapist. saying we're all using the same court professionals. So if a court professional deems you the abuser on your case, then that means that therapist also got it wrong on my case. Did you get what had happened?
Yes.
See that it was just a lot of confusion of why people were against me adding psychological abuse. Like, I just was heartbroken, and it was gut-wrenching to see that people were fighting against psychological abuse. Now, one thing that's very important for me to say and to follow up with this email, Maddie, is that I want you to know that here in Utah, Paul Cutler added psychological abuse, psychological maltreatment, emotional abuse, and coercive control. That's a huge win. That is a huge win for Utah. And so when people who are working on reform tell me that it can't be done, I know that they're lying, and I know they're agendaed. Because if you are not going to add in psychological abuse and emotional abuse and count it just as much as physical and sexual abuse, then you're agendaed. And I've had more than one person tell me that they're not going to add psychological abuse to their bill. And I believe that I'm one of the very few parents that understands that the mother's rights is agendaed towards mothers, and the father's rights is agendaed towards fathers. There is no safe agenda in play for kids right now. Nothing has been created.
Thank you for sharing all of that. It's not fair for women to claim to support all women if they actually don't, and they have a bias or an agenda. And thank you for insisting on adding psychological abuse. I'm really happy that you're sharing all of this, because a lot of people are too scared to speak out against it.
I just want to add a couple things that I think probably the most heartbreaking things. Yes, it was heartbreaking in my own feelings to be cast out from what I felt were my peers, or should be my peers. But even sadder than that, putting the focus back on the kids. There were kids there speaking instead of their parents, instead of their mom, instead of their dad. And I've done everything to keep my son out of the courtroom. It was heartbreaking to see these children who are saying, the courts put me with my abuser, the courts put me with my abuser. Kayden's law and versions of Kayden's law are coming to states under the radar. This is happening very quickly for a reason. People are being excluded from working on this bill, law, and reform for a reason. Kayden's law did not pass federally and nationally. So for that reason, Kayden's law now has to be taken state by state by state. And parents are wondering, what can I do? If Kayden's law comes to my state, what can I do? If Kayden's law comes to your state, they are going to find a mother who lost a child due to the family court system. What Kayden's law and the writers, Tina Swithin, Danielle Pollock, Joan Meyer, Jean Mercer, and Ann Hoyer, they are taking this law state by state because they couldn't pass it federally. They're taking it state by state, and they are latching on to victims and exploiting victims. They're latching on to a mother that has lost a child due to the family court system. And I wish that we could stop that, and maybe one day we will be able to. But they are latching on to a mother and a child. They are exploiting the abuse that mother and that child has endured. And then they are saying that Kayden's law bans reunification camps, and they are pulling at the heartstrings of all the United States parents by saying that this mother lost her child. We need to ban reunification camps, and then it will save everybody. When if you read the bill, it is an extremely problematic bill. As I said, Utah did add in psychological abuse, psychological maltreatment, emotional abuse, and coercive control. But on top of that, we doubled the pages and we turned down the grant money.
That's right, because there's also a stop grant associated with this bill. So House representatives and other politicians are incentivized to pass the bill so that they get all of this money. I mentioned that in my statement as well. Thank you for saying all that, Aubrey. So I'm just curious, what do you believe is the motivation behind Kayden's law? I fail to see how parental alienation is related to some of these cases that they're naming the laws after. I'm confused.
A lot of people who support Kayden's law believe that Kayden's law is an all-inclusive bill, calling it an all-inclusive bill onto the best interests of the child and extenuating circumstances. but in the best interest of the child and extenuating circumstances does not recognize psychological abuse by law. So just because the judge has that in their toolbox does not mean the judge is going to use it unless there is a law and a definition for him to follow. So it's not an all-inclusive bill. But my belief in why Kayden's law is happening is because we come from a long line of generations that the mom is better than the dad. And I believe that Kayden's law is a group of women who truly believe that the mother should have custody under any and all circumstances. The mother is the better parent and should have custody. And a lot of people believe that. There are many people who have never been involved in family court, have never been involved in litigation, have never had false allegations against them, and truly can't comprehend that someone would be so evil to put false allegations on another person. And so that's what I truly believe it is. I truly believe that Kayden's law is the mother's rights movement. I'm not the only one. A lot of people call Kayden's law the mother's rights movement. If you go on to any of their social medias, One Mom's Battle, Custody Peace, and the children are coming, you will see their posts are extremely agendaed. I have had people and professionals in family court refer me to their pages for short periods of time and then tell me, nope, never mind, that's a page, never mind, don't follow that. There's a lot of confusion. And you know what Tina Swithin, One Mom's Battle, and these people are connected is they give half truths and half lies. Right? You're getting this great information that you can agree with, but then it throws in just one little lie to take over the narrative, to hijack the court's narrative. She has people believe reunification therapists are the reunification industry profiting on the misfortunes of children. I have had an AFCC court therapist since 2021. And all my court AFCC therapist does is tell me what I can say and what I can't say to my son. What I can do and what I can't do that is detrimental to my son. I'm not talking to my AFCC court therapist about anything other than my parenting. So that has been my saving grace, is clinging to the court professionals and leaning on their resources, asking them what I can do. NPO was created in 1998. NSPO was created in 2002.
What's SPO?
NSPO is National Safe Parents Organization.
Yeah.
And that is Tina Swithin, Danielle Pollock, and all the writers. NSPO was created after NPO. The courts were set up. The courts were running just fine. Now, is there problems? Absolutely. Could there always be progress? Sure. But the courts were running how the courts are supposed to run, with the judges, the commissioners, the lawyers, the guardian ad litems, the therapists, the supervisors, and maybe other experts. Those are all there and available for all parents to ask for, to put those professionals on their case. NPO, National Safe Parents Organization, has now made parents believe that National Parents Organization is the bad organization. NPO is not the bad organization. They believe in reunification, shared parenting, and that's what it should be when you have two healthy parents. I believe in shared parenting with two healthy parents. I do not believe in shared parenting if one or the other parent is abusive. I want to bring attention to the fact that I spoke with Candace Leitner. She is the Mother Against Drunk Drivers. And the reason I spoke with her is because she took her movement all the way to the president. Now, I don't have solutions yet for parental alienation, but she told me that in order to make change with bill, law, and reform, you do it through an organization and you do it through brochures. Now, back in the day, it would have been brochures, but now it is flyers and fact sheets. In order to create change, you have to take these brochures or these flyers or these fact sheets to the politicians. Then once the politicians have these fact sheets, they're going to decide to vote yes or no. They're not thinking anything being brought to them is made up science.
So basically, they're getting their brochures and their information to the politicians first. And that way they establish with the politicians parental alienation isn't real. See, that's part of the reason why I was so confused when Representative Cutler acted like he didn't know what parental alienation is, because I was certain that they had already spoken to him about it.
One thing I didn't touch on that I just want to explain. So those flyers are going to politicians, and then the organizations and the court certified professionals are recreating their own flyer. But that flyer with the truth is now being ignored because they're looking at the first flyer. So we do have flyers to combat their fact sheets. And I think that's the most important thing, is obviously having both sides. Because if you have both sides in front of you, you're able to explain it when you're giving your testimony, when you're speaking with politicians, when you're emailing them. You have your House of Representatives and you have your senators. Those are the two groups of people that are voting this in or out. So those are the people that you have to speak with. It's first the House of Representatives, and then if it's passed to the senators, and then you want to speak to the senators. Really, honestly, if this bill passes, really any version of Kayden's law or any version of Ohm's law is dangerous. Even though we got some language added to the bill here in Utah, we added psychological abuse, but psychological abuse is not defined anywhere in Utah law. So therefore, it still just became a lawyer's playground. So that's one thing that I want to point out. But I think having the two sides to go to your House of Representatives and your senators is the main thing that you can do if and when Ohm's law comes to your state.
It seems really hypocritical that they only care about victims of domestic violence if it fits their agenda.
Yes, while calling other people agenda.
Thank you so much for sharing your story. And I know a lot of people will gain a lot of information from hearing everything in this episode. Thank you so much, Aubrey, for being brave enough to speak out against it and to stand up for what's right.
Absolutely. And I just want to add one more thing, Maddie. If I could give any parent advice in the family court system, it would be to get your own individual AFCC court therapist. It would be to make sure that you stay on top of your mental health, that you take care of yourself, and that you create a life that your kids could only dream of coming home to, because they will.
Oh, that's so amazing. Thank you for ending with that. I love that. Hopefully a lot of people can hear that and change their lives for the better because of it. So thank you for sharing your journey, and hopefully it can help a lot of other parents on their journeys too.
Thank you so much, Maddie.
Be sure to check out all of her social media pages, and please join her advocacy movement. It's called PARA, P-A-R-A, Parents Against Restricted Access. Finally, please leave Aubrey all the support you can in the comments. I know it will mean a lot to her to read supportive and kind comments.